more on Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's immediate priorities. We're joined by James Chin, Professor of Asian Studies at the University of Tasmania, and he joins us today from Kuala Lumpur. James, the new Prime Minister wants to hit the ground running. He said the economy and inflation are his immediate concerns. That will be welcome news to Malaysians regardless of how they voted.
Exactly. As everybody knows, Malaysia is heading into strong economic headwinds next year. So the thing about the business community is that there's lots of uncertainty. The Malaysian ringgit has not been very stable. It's been going down steadily. So as a trading nation, it's very difficult for you to stabilize your economy if the ringgit is not stable.
Forming his cabinet is going to be a complex task. Many expecting PAS to feature prominently, given they form the largest bloc in Parliament. So how much of Anwar's success depends on who he appoints? And also tell us, what will his main considerations be?
Right, in terms of appointing the cabinet, I think it's quite clear that he has already announced that he's going to trim down the cabinet. So the last cabinet had about 33 ministers, so I expect him to probably trim it down to somewhere between 24 or 25. The thing to note is that the final coalition, his ruling coalition, is not set yet. We do know some of the key players, but there's room for Perikatan to join, actually. So we have to wait until the final makeup of the coalition comes out, and from there he will pick and choose who he wants to appoint into the cabinet. I think the most important thing for him right now is actually to balance out the cabinet between those who represents the core party plus those who represent what we call the reformists. It is quite clear that we need a lot of reforms in Malaysia, and he doesn't have a lot of time. He's got to hit the ground running. As I mentioned earlier, the economy is in trouble, but more importantly, he has to reform key parts of the government in order to bring back political stability.
Well, Parliament will sit on the 19th of December, and the first thing on the agenda will be to table a vote of confidence to prove he has the majority support of MPs in the House. Do you see any risk in that, or are we past all that now?
No, I don't doubt for a fact that he can easily get the 112 members. It's the issue of what is the majority. If he goes below 120, then the government will not be stable. It has to be more than 120. So that's the reason why I mentioned that they're still looking for coalition partners. And indications are they'll probably get upwards of 120 plus. But the good thing about the confidence vote is that some of your viewers may know that when the government was formed in 2020, after the second regime change in 2021, both that government did not put themselves through a confidence vote. So I think this is a very good thing that once you form a government, you put yourself through a confidence vote so that nobody can question your legitimacy. So it's really a good move.
Can you explain this to us? So Anwar has said he will lead a unity government made up of Pakatan Harapan, Barisan Nasional and Sarawak's GPS, but he said that the door is also open for Perikatan Nasional and GRS in Sabah. How productive would it be if the government was so inclusive? Some are saying it would just replicate the stalemate. How would this work?
Right. So the idea of a unity government is that all the major political blocs have to come together and be represented at the government. I think a lot of confusion is because people thought that, if you bring a government national unity, everybody has to be in a coalition. That's not how it works in Malaysia. So in Malaysia, you can actually be supporting the government, but you don't have to be a formal member of Pakatan Harapan. We saw that in the last few governments. So for example, GPS, they've allied themselves with Pakatan Harapan, but they are not a formal member of Pakatan Harapan. So that works as well. So it's a question of how many political parties can bring either formally into Pakatan Harapan or ally themselves with Pakatan. But again, I need to reiterate that I see political stability at least for the next 24 months because he will have the numbers to survive.
Something key to Mr. Anwar's sort of ongoing fight in Malaysia is fighting corruption and abuse of power, and has been a key message throughout his many years as opposition leader. Now he's in power. How do you see him addressing this, especially given there are still criminal cases against some senior UMNO leaders that are now part of his unity government?
That's really a big question mark. So I don't expect him to deal with the corruption issue first off. That is an extremely sensitive issue. Obviously, if you try to disturb UMNO with a 30-member bloc, that's extremely dangerous to you. But I don't doubt that he will try to deal with the corruption. Maybe not with the old cases, but certainly if we proceed forward from today, he probably will deal with the corruption issues. But on the UMNO, on a specific UMNO court cluster, I suspect he will put that on the back burner for a little while longer.
All right, May, thanks for your insight this morning. Good to speak to you as always. James Chin there, Professor of Asian Studies at the University of Tasmania, speaking to us from Kuala Lumpur.